Welcome to Stroke Warrior Radio's MS Disrupted with Kathy Tester. Hey, Kathy, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Doing fabulous, I think. I'm, I'm your host today for Stroke Warrior Radio. I'm a stroke survivor advocate and founder of Stroke Warrior Radio, where we amplify survivor voices, share real recovery conversations, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey. If this is your first time listening to mine and Kathy's show, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back to the family. How are you doing? Let's remind everybody about your background real quick.
Sure.
You're
I
doing
um I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis about the same time. Rheumatoid came first for me, so I was stubborn, didn't really think anything about it. I was very young and thought, "Oh, that's for old people, won't worry about it." Then MS came, of course, stubborn about that. Didn't want to think about that either. Kept telling them, "No, no, I have Raynaud's. I just have no circulation in my fingers and toes, so we'll worry about that later." Then had to take it serious. I lost my eyesight in my right eye and thought, well, maybe it's just a retina thing, and went to the ophthalmologist and found out years later that usually an ophthalmologist is it's common that they do diagnose multiple sclerosis. So had optic neuritis, which is swelling of the optic nerve. And I am one of those rare people that I never got my eyesight back in my right eye. So it's just, like I say, nobody ever asked me to be the designated driver ever. I don't know why. Um, so I don't have that back. It's just an ornament. It's just a pretty blue ornament. It doesn't, I can't see. But and
I
then,
didn't know that.
about years, 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And I was like, okay, that's enough. I think I can plenty feel a lot of the autoimmune diseases. I don't need to have more. So I had a large gym that I owned and loved it, but felt a big void because I was doing lots of certifications and was loving working with my autoimmune clients and didn't have the opportunity, didn't have enough time. And when COVID happened, I made the choice to shut down the big gym. They were wanting to move to a second gym, and I was having a lot of anxiety because I didn't want to, and had to tell my clients that I was closing because my desire was to work with autoimmune stroke clients, anyone who had a brain injury, my Parkinson's clients, and really help with movement. Kind of after that physical therapy point, when what next, and how do we keep movement going? And that was just a very important part of my heart and my desire that I wanted to continue that. So that's my passion.
I love that, and that's why I really wanted to do these shows with you, is because you took an occupation and turned it into an advocacy. I
Yeah.
I I knew nothing about radio, podcasting, anything, and I took that on to share my advocacy. So let's talk about advocacy and finding your voice today a little bit. Um, I what advocacy really means, I think, in my particular case, is once I found other stroke survivors, I my recovery started to become better, and I realized that that community of working with other survivors or other injury, TBI, whatever, um, made my recovery better. So, and part of my early recovery, I was so damn angry, because the first ambulance driver left me all kinds of lousy therapy and all kinds of stuff. So I was angry for a long time. So I think once I met those other survivors, I realized that I had to share my anger and what I learned from it. So um, that's my definition. I had to
Yeah.
give it away in order to get
Yeah.
it. you know?
And that's so true. And it's so honest to say because a lot of us are so angry, with that diagnosis. And some of us take it better than others. Some of us are in denial. Some people just take it so sweet. And I'm like, wow, that's not me. I was pissed. I was like I would run and say, I'm gonna go run. And my family would be like, oh, okay. And they'd know that probably they'd have to pick me up at some point because I was damn determined. I was running that disease out. But I just was mad. I was mad. I was just full of piss and vinegar.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Would
But
have been a great pair back then.
yeah,
Just,
probably. I mean, we would
uh,
have whined a whole lot. We got some
yeah,
peas and went for it. You know, but it became important because every time I talk to another survivor, I learn something. Every time I do these interviews, I learn something new.
yeah.
Um, and hopefully I've taught somebody something new too. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I think we're having some success with our shows and my other shows,
Yeah,
and I know you are with your stuff. So I mean,
yeah,
and and it starts out slowly, how you advocate, but it's
yeah,
something that I don't know. It's just something that I think the community should. I hate to put on people, but it's something that these communities can create to make recoveries better. You know.
yeah. And I love that question too is, especially this month. And I had said something, I put out, a reel and YouTube like short about that because I think that there's a panic, March is stroke awareness and MS awareness. And there's this panic if you're in the community and you have like your show and I've got my podcast and you're really into the community. Like, okay, we've got to put this on and do this and do this. And, I've got my women's support group and I've got a lot I've got a lot of newly diagnosed, chronic illness. And so like, oh, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? And it's like, calm down. It's okay. Start slow. Just, maybe do your first post. Maybe your awareness, maybe your time to just spread awareness is speaking to someone you've never told yet. Just start slow. And, some people start with the full of energy and they're ready to go. And I've seen some people just go. And I've got one girl that's doing movement and she's teaching movement and she's going to do this huge thing in March and she's just Spitfire and she's doing stuff in Atlanta and I'll send it to you and she's just going for it. But then others of us are not ready for that. We're still trying to figure out our voice and it's okay to make this month maybe to share with someone you haven't told yet that this is what I'm going through. This is the awareness I want to share with you. That you may not know cognitively what this feels like. And they
Yeah,
may still not know, but at least you gave them the opportunity, you shared it. This is what I'm going through um, when my concern when I'm going to go out in public. This is how I feel. It's not that I don't want to see you. It's that I don't want to go out in public because I'm going to trip or fall or I just get depressed. And,
yeah,
something like that. I don't think it has to be so big.
yeah. I think there's an element of self-trust involved that
Mm,
you know I, it's the old cliche: one door closes, another one opens, or
right.
you can't learn unless you make mistakes. That kind of stuff.
Right.
At some point, when I started all this, I had 97 patrols. It was like, oh
Right.
my God, what have I gotten myself into? But once I started quietly going through it and seeing what I wanted to do, how to do it, it started to become easier. And
Right.
although I still don't have confidence in all that I do, with the radio. But I still have some trust that it's going to work. You know,
Yeah.
there's a higher power out there that's guiding me. There's my recovery that's guiding me. I mean, there's an element, that element of self-trust is also an element of self-doubt, I think.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like you said, you don't want to go out and let somebody see you fall. Neither do I.
Right.
But
Right.
we go out anyway, don't we?
Right. Exactly. I mean, I said to you before and said to others that, I didn't want to stop running. And, I can't do the things I did, but, I got used to, and I learned to joke around that my running friends call me Thumper. And I was like, they're not doing it because they're making fun of me. They're doing it because they love me and they don't want me to stop. So they would say, come on, Thumper, and let's go. And, that kept me going. And so, you got to learn to laugh at these things. Gosh, if you don't have a sense of humor with this, it's just about impossible, to keep going.
Yeah.
And I do think, when we're talking about, trusting, and I think, trusting the people, and advocating quietly, and, we sometimes we feel like we need to share, we need to share with this. We don't have to, because there's that trust that we need to have first. I mean, I think both of us can say that we shared with the wrong person and thought, why did I share with that person? I didn't need to. And I think, or they've used it against us. As I know for myself, they've used my cognitive issues as a, how would I say, as a um something as a, I'm trying to think of the word, my cognitive issues right now, as
Yeah.
something, as a, just something to use against me, as something hurtful, not as something to be helpful. But and so you have to be really cautious who you share the things that you're struggling with, because some people, are not kind, and some people will use the things that you're struggling with as something against you. And so it's okay that you don't share with everybody. You don't need to. It's our choice who we share. And so I
I
think that's important.
totally agree. I mean, people make the assumption that um, they use those faults. They think that we're intellectually damaged, but we're not. Our
Right.
intellect is still there, you
Right.
know. And we have to learn. I know I did, who I share that information with from an
Right.
intellectual standpoint. You know,
Right.
it may be a friend of mine. It may be somebody that I want to be friends with or something. But sometimes you just gotta say, yeah, not this one, not this one.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, human nature is human nature. And some people use your fault, quote unquote, against you,
Right.
but it's not a fault. It's part of the damage or symptom of what your condition is, like MS.
I would
Stroke or
say
something.
I see that more in the stroke community than in the MS community. That there's more of a judgment that it's not all together anymore. And that's very frustrating for me as someone who works with you, because I'm like, wow, you have no idea. You have no idea what this person did and how they teach me. And, my issues might be cognitive, and I may be able to move around like a monkey. I may be able to climb and do a bunch of stuff, but cognitive, are some of my issues. And I'm working with somebody that was a major engineer, and that's not gone.
Yeah,
And he can still help me, write a paper that I can't do. And so don't you think just because he can't move correctly or speak correctly that that stuff's gone. Don't you judge that that person can no longer be useful in ways because they're in a wheelchair because they can't speak correctly. And I think that is judged harshly. And I think that makes the person with the stroke or with that brain injury feel like then they don't want to share because why? They already think I'm stupid.
Well, and that's why we're talking about advocacy, because that's when it becomes so darn important that we've learned that lesson, that our intellect is not gone. We have to share
Right.
that with other people. And
Yeah.
if you're a survivor of any kind of condition, you have to share it with other people so that they don't have to go through it. And in
Yeah.
turn, you're going to learn something from it.
Yeah. So as a teacher and as a trainer and as someone who works with stroke survivors, I can tell you right now, if you make that judgment, you are missing a lot because I have learned a lot from you guys. And so don't make that judgment call because you'll miss a lot. So advocating again for me, advocating for you guys is something that I gladly do because it is something that again you miss so much. So how advocating quietly is, I think, allowing those helping each other advocate for each other. Sometimes we need to do that. Sometimes we need to advocate for, like you're advocating for MS right now, for MS awareness, and I advocate for stroke. So we advocate for each other. And that is what I love about our communities. And I said that last week about MS community is that I love that if something is wrong and I can't call someone that I love because they're not going to get the pain I'm in, I can call someone in my MS community and say, I am hurting so much. My legs are killing me and I don't know why they won't stop. And
Yeah.
they get it and they'll, pray with me or they'll just, be with me in that time. And so I think that that's a great community to have.
And I think that community and the advocacy generates incredible lessons, lessons in resilience, lessons,
Hmm.
spiritual lessons. Some
Yeah.
people may find God, some people may not, but you know, I believe in it. So it
Yeah.
helps me through my, and those are that's the purpose of advocacy,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
It's
For
to
sure.
share those lessons we've learned of resilience, anger
Yeah.
management, patience, all of those things that we lost during our early recovery.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I love that. And encouraging questions when you're advocacy, and I would say this, like when I went to, I was, I can't see, we already talked about I had my right eye, and I went to a neuro ophthalmologist. And when you go to somebody like that and you're asking a question, and he said to me, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "What?" To see my neuro so I can see. I was told that you could help me. And they say to you and they make you feel stupid, get out because we don't deserve that. We have enough going on. So if you were at a doctor, if you were at somewhere and you we need to ask those questions. And sometimes we're afraid to ask them. But the only dumb question is the question that we don't ask. That's we don't ask dumb questions. And if someone makes you feel like you've asked a dumb question, if a doctor or someone makes you feel that, get out. You're not in the right spot. You need to feel that you're seen. And I always say that if you feel like you're not supported, get in a support group. And they're all over. They're on meetup groups. If you don't know what that is, they're on Facebook. You can look up meetup group. You can find them on social media everywhere. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them. And if you find them and they're negative, go to the next one. Don't stay in that one. I know that I lead a women's one for chronic illness, and there's so many. So that I always say, what would you say, Ralph? What's your advice?
Oh, I definitely agree with the support group. It's funny that one of the things that took me years to learn, and I'm 10 and a half years post-stroke, It took me probably 6 years to learn that I'm captain of my own team. I can fire my doctors. So many, unfortunately, in my opinion, and it's pretty harsh, but unfortunately, I think people put doctors or the medical professions on a pedestal, and they're
Yeah.
not necessarily there. They don't. If we put them on a pedestal, they're going to fall farther than we expected.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, there's a
They're
lesson
not
learned.
gods.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to accept the doctor they refer. You know,
Right.
if my PCP recommends this speech language pathology,
Right.
and I've interviewed, which I do now, I interview my therapist, I check out their
Yeah.
facilities, that kind of stuff. If it doesn't fit, get the hell out, you know?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And you are worth it. You are worth it. And even when you feel, here's the thing with stroke and MS, depression is a part of it.
Yeah.
It's not because something went bad with you. Depression is a part of it. So you don't need to feel bad for one more thing. So advocacy, and don't feel bad because you went to the doctors, you advocated for yourself and you're feeling now overwhelmed. What I always say is do some seated cardio because you can't get that dopamine up because you can't be sad with you do some, if you do some cardio. Put on your favorite music, do some seated cardio. My favorite stuff is do some, and I'll tell you about this machine after. But and go Michigan because we play Michigan State, which is a big thing. If you know, it's
Hey, that's
basketball, and if you know me, I love sports. So do some seated cardio. Put your timer on for 30 seconds. Do some seated cardio. Do some punches. Nothing makes you feel better than getting some dopamine. So this is called a myocycle. If you are a military veteran, you need to you get those. Okay. This is something with MS that you get. There's so many things. I'm doing big series on military veterans and so many things that you don't know that you are allowed to get. And so it doesn't come easy. You've got to petition, you've got to like everything. So it's really, I mean, think of this, you're advocating for yourself with doctors, and then you're advocating the VA on top of that. So, I'm really liking the series I'm doing with, and we'll have to talk about it because it's not just MS, it's stroke, so it's really
It's,
cool thing.
it's right before the horse. Is it self-advocacy that comes first or advocacy for others that comes first? Which one is it? I mean,
Yeah.
I had to learn to self-advocate because I found advocates for me. So, it's a double-edged sword, if you will. But
Right.
advocacy, no matter whether it's self or others, it's
Right.
gonna benefit somebody. And it's
Right.
usually
Right.
gonna benefit me. It's usually gonna benefit the person I talk to. If it's the slightest little thing that makes their recovery better,
Right.
we've succeeded. You know,
100%. And
yeah,
I think, you know what? I did a thing on parenting, you know what? And I did it on this month because we feel guilty as parents. But you know what? I think I see the strength in my daughter with her little one because she's learned to advocate for her mom through the years. And I watch her go in with the strength of 10 moms, and she goes in when my little granddaughter is something's wrong, and she doesn't take any business. She just goes in and she knows how to advocate. So we're teaching people a lot when we do that.
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. The advocacy can play such an important part in your medical appointment. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to learn to make a list of all the dumb questions I had,
Yes.
and because cognitive issues again. But if you think of it, I have a posted program on my app on my telephone.
Yeah.
If I think of a question, there's my doctor list. I
Yeah.
put the question in. That
Yeah.
part of advocacy too is
Yeah.
any questions you have, any ideas you have, put it on that list. I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
utilize your apps.
yep,
I use my memos. I asked the doctor,
yep,
can I use my memo so that I've got a recording of what we discussed so I can listen to it later because I'll forget in 30 seconds, maybe
yeah.
20. So that's something that I do often. And I can't think of a doctor I've ever had that has said no. So
Exactly.
that's a
Exactly.
great thing.
And if you did, you'd probably find another doctor, which is something I
Yeah.
do. If the doctor's not on the same page, I quit.
And you don't
And
want to
that's
be there.
self-advocacy again, you
Yeah,
know. Um, by doing that, your recovery becomes much better, and you may
right.
help somebody else become much better.
Absolutely.
It's, you know, sometimes it became confrontational with doctors, you know, but
Sure.
um, it there's a way to do it. You know, it's funny with recovery. So much of it is the lessons we've learned. You know, by doing things wrong, and it's not necessarily wrong as long as you're trying. So, I mean, that those confrontations became learning experiences, so that next time I go in, I'm more assertive instead of passive aggressive.
Right. Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. Oh, definitely the times that as in my younger years, not realizing that I could say no, that I could say, this isn't working for me. I'm not doing this, and I
Yeah,
would say, oh, okay, I guess I have to. They said,
yep,
learning that. So
yeah, it becomes real important.
I think we covered it.
Pardon me?
I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think we have. Um, I do want to ask one final question. How do you encourage questions without guilt? I mean, again, we
Ooh,
put these
that's a good
people on
one.
pedestals. How do we get through the fact that, they're not better than me? I'm in charge, not them. How do we get through that?
Asking questions to give me an example.
Um, I don't like the fact that you sent me to this physical therapist. What? Aren't there other physical therapists I can use? And that took me 3 years to learn that there's neurophysical therapists. I was going to workers' comp physical therapist. That doesn't do a damn thing for stroke recovery. So I went found neurophysical therapist. But I had to fight with doctors, three different ones before I found the right doctor that
Right.
referred me to a neurophysical therapist. Um, I felt bad about it. There was some kind of guilt that got into those conversations with the first two doctors. But I learned on the third one, ah, you know, it's my recovery. I got to get over that guilt, I think.
Right. You mean having to have those conversations and getting a little bit more assertive?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It,
And
it,
there is, and it, I find as a female and I know you're not a female, so
yeah,
you get immediately pardon my language, but you're a bitch. And so it is difficult. As a man, you're a man and you have the right to ask questions and to be more assertive. As a female, if we get even this much off being kind, we are a bitch. And so assertiveness, we have to be extremely careful. And so we either have to accept the role that we are a bitch, but that gets us in trouble because nobody's going to help us getting into appointments. Nobody's going to go the extra mile for us when our chart says bitch. Some of the nurses have bitch on charts. So it it is a difficult boundary because you want to be kind and assertive at the same time. So it is, it comes in, I would say it comes in wisdom and years and age. I think as a younger woman, I didn't know that as well. It came more assertive than kind. I would say I landed more on the assertive part. And as I've aged, I've learned to do it with more kindness.
Yeah, and it's funny. I did take a course on that a while back, and that helped. So again,
Yeah,
self-advocacy, finding those things that work for
right.
you.
Yeah.
Um, we're kind of getting towards our end here. What do you want listeners to remember about advocacy?
I think that, we learn it in however we learn it as, I learned it in different ways. We have different paths. Our personalities are made up in so many different ways, how we were raised, the homes that we grew up in. My advocating started early. I grew up in an alcoholic home. I advocated for things like that. So advocating didn't seem abnormal to me. It kind of came natural. So, like what you said in the middle of this, sometimes we learn to advocate for others first. So we advocate for someone that's sick in our family. So we've started doing advocating before we knew that we were sick, right? So we may have a sick loved one that we've been advocating for. My son was autistic. So I was advocating him before all of that. So I was learning to advocate for things before I was advocating for myself. So when it came to me, then it was a transition. I think it's a different transition because for me, myself, it's much easier to advocate for others than it is for myself. I I really love to help others. And for myself, I'm like, I had to learn to care about myself as much and to get as assertive for myself. So I think we have to learn that. And so that's why I said you're worth it. So remember that you're worth it, just like the loved ones that you advocated for. You're worth it as well.
Definitely a learned experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for spending time with Kathy and I today. If today's conversation resonated, share it with someone who needs it. You can find me at strokewarriorradio.com and on social media at Stroke Warrior Radio. And you can find Kathy at MS Disrupted. Anyplace else? That's social media, right?
Miss Disrupted or msdisrupted.com is the website, but it's being worked on, but you can still get to it.
Okay, cool.
But and of course,
Until
Move It
next
or
time.
Lose It is the podcast.
Pardon me?
Move It or Lose It is the podcast that you can get on.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I love those podcasts, by the way. Anyway,
Thank you.
um, until next time, remember, you are not alone. That's the wave. That's warriors achieving victories every day. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.